Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Look, guys, I have been fired up for this episode because the gentleman I have on right now is somebody that I actually just met through social media. And he is a guy that has a phenomenal story that he's going to get into. But I came across him on the Explore page on Instagram. It was just a little a little reel of him and his music. And he has just a phenomenal testimony about his life. And the music represents his life. And it's faith-based music, but it's rock, it's rap, it's soul. It's got all that genre mixed into one. And it's just, I mean, the music is incredible. I'm not kidding you, Joe. I immediately downloaded all the songs I could find on Apple iTunes because if I use it, it's motivation. I like to go for a run and it's motivation. But anyways, for you that are watching, listening, I have my good friend, Joe Nestor on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Bryan. Thank you so much for having me on here. And thank you for those kind words. It's just a humbling experience, to say the least. And it is a powerful testimony, but it's his testimony. I'm just the one telling it. So all glory to God, seriously.
Yeah.
But thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You're the vessel speaking the word for him. And I'm not kidding. I literally downloaded every single song I could find. I've been playing it for different people. I'm not kidding, dude. I absolutely love the music because there's a lot of music out there, and this is not to knock on other types of music and all that, but there's a lot of music out there that really, in my opinion, sends the wrong message to listeners, and especially to our kids, our youth that kind of grow up listening to this music. And some of the stuff I hear is just like, what in the world is that? And then you listen to a guy like Joe Nestor, who sings about challenges and struggles, but he does it with such compassion, and he does it in a very clean and natural way that is great to listen to. And it's not only a testimony, like I said, of his life, but it's so great to listen to, and it motivates you and pushes you. And it's just really good stuff, man. So I want to do this, dude. I got to know about I got to hear your testimony, man. I want to hear all about your life because you had some challenges. You had some rocky past, and the Lord pushed you through. And so I'm really curious for my listeners to hear more about you. So let's dive into your backstory right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware. My parents divorced when I was 6 years old. And pretty much, my mom didn't want to stop partying, didn't want to stop. She hung around rough crowd. My parents used to. They used to hang around the bikers and things like that. A lot of marijuana getting passed around, a lot of different drugs and drinking. And when I was born, my father was like, man, like, we just brought a life into this world, and we have to set the example. It's time to put all those childish things away, and he was really motivated to change, and he did change. My mother had a hard time doing that. And when I was 6 years old, I remember bikers coming over, hanging out, and they used to burn me with cigarette butts, saying we got to toughen this kid up, and stuff like that. And just little things, here and there, that my dad would just finally had enough of it. And they got a divorce, and my father took me to live with my grandparents. So we moved in with my grandparents at the age of 6. They lived in a nicer part of town, a good neighborhood. And my grandparents, they were Catholics. They went to church every Sunday, and they were really old school, But they just wanted to give me the best upbringing possible, which they did. Um, I had the same group of friends from the age of 6 all the way through high school, Ryan. You know, um, one thing my dad taught me at an early age was anything that you do in this life, do it to the best of your ability. You know, don't do anything with half measure. And I kind of took that to heart. And he instilled those principles, those morals in me at an early age. And I remember, even for t-ball, man, we would practice every day in the side yard practicing. And I remember going out for t-ball practice, or t-ball signups. And like, as soon as I like went in for my tryout, they were like, yo, this kid, like he can't play t-ball. We have to bump him up, just because practice makes perfect. I just practice and practice and practice. And they were like, this kid is beyond t-ball level. So they put me in little league right away. And I was like the littlest kid on the team, but I proved myself. And I practiced. Baseball was my life for like the first, I'd say, 7 or 8 years, after I moved in with my grandparents. I played baseball, led my team to the championships, became a good baseball pitcher. And even through high school, I was an all-state baseball pitcher. I led my team to state championships 2 years in a row. We lost both years to my dad's old high school. But no, I mean, it was baseball. Then it was skateboarding. I practiced skateboarding. I loved skateboarding. So I practiced day in, day out until, I was like the best kid in the neighborhood. Then I was like the best kid in the city. And then next thing you know, I'm sponsored for skateboarding and I'm going to competitions and stuff like that. And skateboarding led me to guitar. And, I started playing guitar and I fell in love with the guitar, and just music just soothed my soul, man. And I just practiced day in and day out until, I was like the best at what I'm doing. And it's just those little things that my dad taught me growing up. And like I said, I had the same group of friends from the age of 6 until, through high school. And we weren't the type of kids that partied or drank or got into like crazy stuff. We were all good kids that like we would go down the street and play home run derby, or we would, skateboard or roller skate around the neighborhood. And I think the worst thing that we did growing up was on mischief night, Halloween. We would go play like doorbell Dixie or egg some cars or something stupid like that. But like we were never into drinking, never into, partying and things like that. That just wasn't who we were. We were more focused on life. And me personally, I don't like feeling outside of myself, if that makes sense. I don't like doing anything that takes me out of being able to be in control of my own thoughts and my own actions. And it's not that I didn't try alcohol or I didn't try marijuana. I think, I tried it, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't until after I graduated high school that things started getting rough for me. I joined a band and we started getting some local recognition. We started traveling around, and the music industry, man, is just full of drugs and alcohol and partying. And I didn't know at the time, but the same childhood friends that I grew up with were starting to experiment with these drugs, and they were starting to get hooked and addicted. And I lived a sheltered life, so I didn't know the signs to look for, but I'll never forget the day that changed my life. It was a Friday. It was in February, and the year was 2002. And I remember playing a show outside of Philadelphia. And after the show, my friends introduced me to crack cocaine. Now, here's this kid who's been sheltered from all this stuff his whole life, and like, I listened to the people when they came in to speak at high schools and stuff, and they did their little speeches about drugs and alcohol, but I didn't think it could ever happen to me. you know. But here's my friends, my best friends, who are offering this crack cocaine. And I remember thinking to myself, like, man, these are my friends. You know,
Mhm.
I know what they said in high school, and there's like little those like in the auditorium when those speakers would come and speak about it. And I remember, like, I'm thinking about homeless people. I'm thinking about people missing their teeth. I'm thinking about people going to prison, people shoplifting and pushing shopping carts across the city with soda cans and full of scrap metal. But these are my best friends, man. They still have the house. They still have the family. They have the friends and the girlfriends and the job. And I'm like, man, is this really like, is it really that bad?
You're
Or is it just
justifying
something?
it.
Right. I'm justifying it in my head. And I'm like, is it really that bad? Or is it just something that they tell you not to do because it's illegal? You know? So I tried it. I tried it, and it completely altered the course of my life in a split second. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it was, but the second those drugs hit my bloodstream, it's like a switch flipped inside of me and I could not turn it off. I was immediately addicted. And for the next few months, I found myself spending all this money on crack cocaine, and I lost my job. Just things started going downhill really quick. And crack cocaine led to heroin, and heroin uh, was harder to hide, you know. Um, and it got to the point where I started having these thoughts of stealing, you know, from my grandparents and stealing their jewelry or their money and stuff like that. And I come from a good family, you know. We celebrated Christmas together. Everybody in the family would come over to my grandparents. We'd sit around in a circle, opening up gifts one by one. They'd all come over for their birthdays and things like that. Like, we were very close. And when I started to have these thoughts of stealing from them, I made a decision to run away from home. And that's sad. That's sad that those drugs had a hold on me that quick, you know, in the matter of 6 months. And it's what's crazier is the insanity of the disease of addiction is I chose at 19 years old that I would rather be homeless than to get help, or than to let my grandparents know and let my family know that I was hooked on drugs. So I made this decision. I packed my book bag at 19 years old and I ran away from home. I chose to be homeless. Now, the first night, I remember walking downtown through the streets and telling myself, you know, this is summer of 2002. And I'm like, I'm only going to do this for the summer. This is only going to be, you know, some wild and crazy experience. You know, I'm going to live off the land like a modern day hippie, you know. And after summer's up, I'm going to enroll into college and I'm going to get my life together. And it's just going to be some crazy story that I tell my kids when I get older. I was so naive, Bryan. I was so naive. That summer lasted 10 years.
Mm.
Everything that I said that I would never do. And like you were saying, like justifying in my mind, you know, um, it began with little compromises. Like, oh, I'll sniff heroin, but I'll never shoot it.
Mm.
And then I started shooting it. Oh, well, I'll never, I'll never shoplift from the stores. But then I started shoplifting. Then I got locked up for shoplifting. I did some time. Then I started hearing stories from other addicts in jail. And they're saying, oh man, shoplifting, man, you might as well just commit robbery, you know, or you might as well just burglarize, break into houses, you get better stuff. So then I get out and then I start breaking into houses, stealing power tools, stealing appliances, things like that. Then I get locked up for that. I do some time for that. You know, it's like Shoplifting led to, uh, burglary led to robbery. And before I knew it, man, everything that I said that I would never do, I ended up doing. And 10 years later, I'm that homeless person holding a cardboard sign up on the street corners. I'm missing half my teeth. I weigh 130 pounds soaking wet. And I was so broken and hopeless. And I spent a lot of my time homeless in Kensington, Philadelphia. I don't know if you guys know or heard of Kensington, Philadelphia, but look it up. It's ground zero. It's like one of the largest open air drug markets in the world. And it's like a black hole. It sucks you in and you can't get out. Nobody there is getting clean or sober. Nobody's turning their life around. And I was surrounded by this for so long that it just became normal to me. And I thought that I had made so many bad decisions in my life leading up to this point that, like, man, this is the life that I have now. And it's the hand that I was dealt. And it's the decisions that I've made. And now I just got to live with it. I'm going to die in these streets, or I'm going to die doing life in prison. And it's sad when you're so broken and hopeless that you accept that. You accept that as truth. And you just kind of bow down and give up. And that's where I was at, Bryan. That's where I was at. And man, but we serve a mighty, powerful God.
Amen.
And here's the thing, man, no matter how far gone you think you are, no matter how lost no matter how lost you are, no matter how far gone you think you are, no matter how many bad things you've done, I can testify that you just simply cannot out-sin the loving grace of God. His grace and mercy is endless, and he had different plans for my life. And December 18th, 2012, I get a random phone call, and it's from my best friend. My childhood friend that I used to go to school with. We used to skateboard together, go fishing together, and the same best friend who introduced me to crack and heroin. And he was like, Joe, I know I feel partially responsible for the mess that you're in right now, because I know I introduced you to this stuff. And I know what it feels like to be broken and hopeless. But if you're thinking that there's no way out, I'm here to tell you there is a way out. And if you're willing, I'll pay for your train ticket to come to South Florida. We'll get you into detox. We'll get you into treatment. We'll help you turn your life around if you're willing. Now, at this point in my life, I was supposed to rob a bank with some friends the next day. Mm. And I think this is the moment where God kind of intervened, looking back, I can see God's hand in it and all of it now. And it's so strange, because I didn't want to rob banks. I didn't want to do these things, but it's the addiction that, had a hold of me. Needless to say, I hopped on that train the next morning. I hopped on that train. It was like a 26-hour train ride, nothing but the clothes on my back. I didn't know where I was going, what I was doing, but something had to change. And sometimes you have to change people, places, and things, So I got down to South Florida, and I see my best friend. Now, this is the same best friend that, like I said, we grew up together, but it's also the same best friend that introduced me to drugs. We were homeless together. We'd been locked up together. I had seen him at his lowest. But here he is, shining. He's gleaming. And he's got his weight up. He looks good. And you could tell that he's clean, and you can tell that he's happy. And that was the first glimpse of hope because I hadn't seen that in so long. And I'm like, well, maybe if he can do it, maybe I can do it. So that's kind of what had me holding on for a long time. And went into detox, got out of detox on Christmas Day 2012, went straight into a treatment center. And would you know that my roommate in treatment just so happened to have an acoustic guitar?
Hmm.
And I'm like, man, I haven't played guitar in forever, and I just picked up this guitar and I started playing music and I started writing music again. And my roommate kind of like it, we inspired each other, and music became our therapy. And we completed treatment, get into this halfway house, and I'm doing the right thing. I see all these people at this halfway house and they're all happy. They're all like living life and enjoying life. And I'm like, how are people enjoying life without crack or heroin?
Right.
Like that was normal, right? I'm
Right.
like, you know, but seriously, that's just the life that I had been living the past 10 years. It's all I knew. So I couldn't figure out how they're happy without drugs or alcohol. And they all said the same thing. They all said meetings, sponsor, step work, and God. And I just kind of followed suit. I was so broken and hopeless. I was willing to do anything. I gave it a shot. I started going to meetings. I got a sponsor. I started working the steps, and I started praying to God. Now keep in mind, I grew up, I was raised, Catholic, very God fearing. I'm like lucky, like he didn't just zap me off with a lightning bolt by
Right.
now. Um, but after, going through the program and talking to God and really developing a relationship with him, I started to see, man, it's not God fearing, it's God loving. He is a loving God. And no matter what you've gone through in life, he can turn it around to use for his kingdom. He can turn it around for the good. And I stayed at that halfway house for 18 months, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. You know, um, I had to learn everything all over again. You know, and I wanted to make sure when I left that I didn't relapse or go back or mess up. You know, would you know that the day that I came down to Florida, remember I told you I was with some friends, they were supposed to rob a bank the next day? Well, they robbed that bank and they got on a high-speed car chase across state lines, and they ended up getting caught with guns, with the money, with the drugs. And at this point, I was already a 3-time felon, you know? So that would have been life. Well, I feel like God spared me there, you know? And this whole time, I'm just writing music. I'm not writing it for the world. I'm not writing it for anybody else to hear. These are our own little personal testimonies. Like each song is like a chapter to my life and of what I've been through. I wasn't writing songs to be on the radio or to be famous or anything like that. It was my own just personal healing. And a lot of the guys started coming up to me and they're like, Joe, your music's not just helping you, it's helping us.
Amen.
And if it's helping us, it can help others. So they asked me, they're like, why don't you put it up on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube? Keep in mind, I was homeless for 10 years during this whole era where social media just took off, you know? And all I can remember saying to them was like, what's Facebook? What's a Insta, whatever? And they started laughing. But they helped me create these accounts, and I started uploading some songs. And next thing you know, they started going viral. And I had no idea so many people felt the same way, you know? And I started touring the country, for the next few years. Started touring the country. And it's so crazy because one minute I'm at a halfway house, completely broken, trying to piece my life back together and develop this relationship with God. And the next minute I'm touring the country, and I got people flying in from UK and Australia and wherever with my lyrics tattooed on them. I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, like I still remember, writing this song at 2 o'clock in the morning in a halfway house because I was fighting every urge in my body not to go back out. Um, it was wild, man, just a wild roller coaster. And over the years, in the beginning, I did curse. I did, put some profanity in my music, and it was just my way of expressing myself. But over the years, as my walk with Christ has matured and my relationship with God has really developed and gotten stronger, I realized I don't need curse words or profanity to enhance the emotion in my music. I don't, the Lord doesn't want us to have, a profane tongue. He doesn't want us to speak those words, and he's just the conviction. Slowly but surely, he's been placing conviction in my heart to change my ways, as I grow closer to him. And that's what this, latest album is really about. I'm not sure if you want to speak on that, but like, it's just been a slow and steady walk, man. It's been a wild and crazy roller coaster ride. And I'm just sitting back, and I find that, it's much easier and better when we get out of our own way and let him have his way, because so long I was trying to fight it, hold on, wanted control of this, wanted control of that. And I always made a mess of things, it wasn't until I surrendered my life completely to him, got out of my own way and let him take the wheel, that things really started taking off, and now I have a beautiful life today. I have, an amazing wife, an amazing family, 3 children and a grandbaby, who have never seen that side of me, and God willing, they never do. Actually, I don't want to say God willing, because he's always willing. I have to be willing, you know what I mean? Yeah, I just have an amazing life today. And I know it's cliche, but I truly do have a life beyond my wildest dreams. Everything that the enemy tried to use to destroy me and take from me, God has given back. God has turned it around and now he's using it for his kingdom. Mm-hmm. I travel the country, advocating for recovery and addiction, homelessness, and now speaking in prisons and performing for the inmates, So we serve an amazing, powerful God. And that word that you read in the Bible is not some history book. It is the living word. And miracles are happening each and every day. And I'm grateful to be one of them. So, yeah.
That's it. Story over. Podcast over. That's all we need. No, seriously, man. Gosh, such a remarkable story. I say story, but really it is a testimony, because you lived a good life, growing up, and then things went sideways and you lived the worst life, and now you're back to living the good life. And to hear the fact that you were essentially homeless for all those years it's crazy to think that, because I hear stories all the time, but it's crazy to think that you were hooked on heroin and doing some really bad stuff as far as the drugs go, and you were able to come out of it and turn your life around, is remarkable. It's a testimony to the power of God, but it's a testimony also to the power within you to make that change, to make that switch. Because I too struggled with, I didn't struggle with drugs. I struggled with alcohol. I had
Mhm.
an alcohol problem. I was in the Marine Corps. And so I always joke with people and say, yeah, you know, what'd you get out of the Marines? I say, well, they taught me how to cuss, they taught me how to drink, and they taught me how to kill. That's what they did. So, so when I got out of the Marines, I was a drinker. You know, I drank beer, I drank liquor, all that kind of stuff. And I grew up with an alcoholic family. I grew up with an alcoholic father. And then
Mhm.
my wife and I had two boys. And then the next thing I know, here I am, you know, just pounding back the beers. I was an all in dad. I was very, very focused and very intentional dad. Coached all my
Mhm.
boys' sports teams from the ages of 4 all the way up through high school, did all that stuff. Sober, meaning
Mhm.
not drinking, but when I was home and doing my own thing, I was a drinker and I was heavily
Mhm.
drinking.
Yeah.
And then it took me, and I've shared this on my show before, but it took me one moment sitting in my chair in the living room and telling my 8-year old to go get me a beer out of the fridge. And
Ooh.
he brought me back a beer, which was routine, right? Like I'd tell him, and this one particular time I just went, what am I doing? I'm influencing my 8-year old with alcohol by telling him to get me a beer.
Mhm.
It just didn't sit right with me. Like something snapped in me, and I'm like, that's it. I got to stop. And 14 years, September 7th, 14 years ago, is the day that I stopped. And I'm still sober today. And yes, that is a testimony to the strength of my Lord and Savior, but it's also a testimony to my strength in me to be there for my family and change my life
Mhm.
for my family. Um,
Yeah.
so gosh, what a crazy roller coaster ride you've been on. And your music now, as I said earlier, really expresses the challenges and the struggles that you went through. I think
Yeah.
as a motivator for you
Yeah.
personally, right? To keep
Yep.
you going on the right path. It's just incredible. And do your kids, now I know they're your bonus kids, do they know about your story? Even though they didn't grow up with you, did they know about your story?
Yes, they do. They know everything, and I don't hold back. And I actually say it in one of my songs. I share everything openly. To raise awareness on the dangers of addiction. When you're young and you're careless. Um, so I share everything with them. Simply because I was raised right. I had a good childhood.
Mm-hmm.
But I was sheltered from it and I didn't know anything about it. So when those questions got asked, I was like, sure, why not? I'll try it, not really knowing the full dangers of what could possibly happen. So now my kids know that. And, they come out to these events with me. I perform at a lot of recovery rallies
Mm-hmm.
and other things like that. And they come out. They're my little merch helpers. They help sell the shirt. They're great salesmen. I just put the kids behind the merch booth and everybody wants to come see them. So
That's awesome. No, that's cool. That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
I try to involve them in everything. So yeah.
Yeah. When you were going through your struggles, because you said that your relationship with your parents was good, but you said your dad was really the motivator to trying to get you into a better, you know, home life or a better situation because things weren't good for you guys as far as your parents go. They were into all the, and your dad really
Yeah.
made that switch. How was your relationship with him when you started going down that path of the wrong path?
Well, my parent, my dad ended up getting remarried when I was like 16. And him and my stepmom, man, they always wanted to help. They were there to help me if I wanted it. You know, they weren't supportive as far as like we're just going to give him money.
Right.
When I first made the decision to become homeless, I overdosed a few months afterwards. And my dad was right there in the hospital. And right after that, he was like, that's it. We're taking you to treatment. And they drove me to Baltimore, Maryland, and got me into this treatment center.
How
But
old were you?
I was 19 years old,
19.
and I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I ended up leaving like a week later and just going back to being homeless, and I'm sure it broke his heart. I'm sure it broke his heart. And although like he wasn't the type of dad to like just give me money like that didn't happen at all. But if I ever called and I needed clothing or I needed food, they were right there. They were right there. If I ever called and I was like, I want to go to detox, I'm ready to get help, they were right there. But I know it broke his heart, but he had to. He had to love me from afar,
Mm.
because there's a saying, if you baby the addict, you'll bury the addict.
Mm.
So if you enable them, they're never going to be able to hit the bottom that they need to hit in order to change their life around. So, but we have an amazing relationship now. I'm coming back home tomorrow. I catch a flight back to Philadelphia, and we're going to go fishing on Friday. And I have a big show this weekend with Jordan St. Cyr in Philadelphia, outside of Philadelphia. Sweatshirt of Hope 2023 Music Fest. It's,
Mm.
it's, it's going to be huge. But yeah, my relationship with my dad has never been better. Never been better.
That's
So,
awesome. Yeah, I mean, and the reason I asked you that specifically because we are influenced in various ways by our own parents, right? We
mhm,
we we learn from them. We learn what to do and what not to do,
mhm,
and sometimes that bond can just be broken, and depending on what we do or not do, that bond can be broken with our parents, with our dads
mhm.
in particular. And
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to know from you, like when you were going through that, how was that relationship? Because I'm sure, I guarantee you, if we had him on here right now, he would say, I was very disappointed in Joe and I was very hurt by the decisions he was making, but I never loved him any less.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And the fact that you guys came back together and are both sharing this bond and this relationship now is remarkable. And that's awesome. That's really cool, man. It's really cool. Um, and when it comes to your kids, I mean, this is a testimony for them, you know, going through life now to keep them from going down the wrong
Yeah.
path. And I don't think that your situation in particular, you said you had the same group of friends growing up, and
Mhm.
then one of them all of a sudden introduced you to some drugs. Uh, we are influenced by the people around us,
Mhm.
and even though you grew up with those friends, um, I'm gonna guess that your dad probably didn't know a whole lot about these kids other than
Now.
other than they were just friends that you hung out with.
Yep.
And I always encourage parents, and I know I'm kind of running on a tangent here, but there's a point. I always encourage parents that you can have a good home life and you can teach your kids what to do and what not to do and how to be respectful and how to be mature and all these different things, and your kid can have a great life at home but still choose the wrong path. and
Mhm.
i and that's the influence of the people around them outside of the home. And so I always encourage parents, make sure that little
Mhm.
Billy or little
Yep.
Johnny that your son or daughter is hanging out with. Make sure you know them, and then take it a step further and make sure you know their parents,
Yep.
because little Johnny may be sweet and innocent around your dad, but the
Yeah.
second he gets out the door, he's introducing Joe to crack cocaine. And
Yeah.
so that's my point, is that yes, our influences around us affect who we become and who we are. And when it comes to our kids, know your kids as friends and know your kids as friends' parents, uh,
Yeah.
to
Absolutely.
really understand who they are. Because yes, our kids can have a great home life. Joe had a great home life. His dad took the right steps to get him to make sure he grew up in a safe environment. but his dad didn't know Joe's friends.
Yeah.
And that was the disconnect. When it comes to your kids, the reason I share all that is when it comes to your kids, how important is that relationship between you and them, but also knowing who they're hanging around? Because I'm sure that runs deep for you.
Well, so here's the thing, as far as our kids and their friends and their parents, our kids live somewhat of a sheltered life. We homeschool.
Okay.
And we know each of their friends, like as far as like on a personal level, on a family level. Like a lot of their friends are their cousins, and then they have a few other friends, but they're me and my wife. Their parents are me and my wife's friends.
Right.
So we know them. We know everyone they have contact with and they like hang out with. We know, on a deep level, which is good, and we keep them involved in the church. We go to church, every Sunday, and my stepson Hunter, his last year was his first season playing like flag football, but our church has sports teams. So like, and it's just it keeps it God based, and everything is like God and Jesus are at the center of everything that we do. Every morning we wake up, we read Ephesians 6. We put on the full armor of God to protect us from any attacks of the enemy throughout the day, because we know it can happen. No matter, like you said, no matter how much you try to shelter them, no matter how, unfortunately we live in a fallen world, and there will be attacks. So you have to stay armored up. So my kids have actually gotten to the point where their little brains are like sponges. They've almost memorized Ephesians 6 word for word, which is great, so.
That's awesome.
But yeah.
That's awesome. Joe, I wanted to ask you, when it comes to you traveling, I'm sure it can be tough being a dad all of the time, because you're trying to build this career, and you're trying to build this life for you and your family. How do you accommodate that challenge of balance of being there for your family and your career?
Well, I mean, one of the main things that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build it with my family. I don't want it to just be me, like I want it to be a family thing. So my wife, she's my rib, she's my manager. She handles my booking, handles my merchandise, handles, X, Y, and Z. She travels with me out to shows a lot of times when we can, included in the quotes when we tell somebody who wants to book me, we put our kids on there as well, so they can come out with us. And like I said, not only do they get to experience and see, basically, what am I trying to say? Like the effects of drugs and alcohol and how it has impacted other people. They get to see that, but then they get to see the other side, of people being clean and sober and having fun without drugs, without alcohol, without anything, and I just incorporate them with everything as much as I can, on the times when I'm away, I make sure when I come back, it's their time. We're going to the park, we're playing football, going fishing. He's my buddy. He's my fishing buddy, man. This kid at 8 years old had already caught an 8-pound bass. And I'm like, man, most people can't even say that their whole life, So, so I try to be as hands-on as possible. Just like my dad was with me. My dad was my best friend growing up. He was my baseball coach. He was, on the weekends we would go golfing or play bowling, and we would go fishing every weekend as well. He was my best friend growing up, and that's what I learned from him. And that's also what I'm trying to instill in my kids. I'm trying to be as hands-on as possible with them, be their best friend. But I'm also, one thing that my father didn't do was raise awareness, of the dangers of this dark and crazy world, Because like you said in the beginning, you know, this secular music and the music that you're hearing on these mainstream radio stations and on, I don't think they have MTV anymore, but the stuff that you hear in the world, man, is all about drugs. It's all about women. It's all about money, right? And just all this crazy stuff. But then you wonder why all we see is murder, rape, drug traffickers, drug dealers, because it's all in our music and people don't realize the impact that music has,
Yeah.
man. And it's no surprise, you know, Satan was God's most prized angel, and he was the angel of music. So of course it's going to infiltrate here on earth, you know. But we have to fight against it, man.
Yeah.
Spread positivity, spread light, spread the message of Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. And oh, I love that. Yeah. First thing that stuck out to me that you said there, and it's super important that I want people to capture is that you, when you're traveling, you try to get your family involved as much as possible. When you're home, you're intentional with your time with your kids. You
Yes.
want to be your kid's best friend. That is so awesome. I hear parents say, you know, you shouldn't be your kid's friend. Absolutely disagree with that. You should be your kid's friend, but there should be boundaries. Obviously,
Yeah.
there's respect and boundaries, and they have to understand that there's a difference between a parent and a child. And even though we're friends, there's that difference. As long as they have that understanding, it's okay to be your kid's best friend. My two boys, 24, and my youngest about to be 22, they are two of my best friends. And it's always been that way. They've always been that way with me, and I with them. And so it's very important for people to pick up on that you said that. Yeah, you want to be your kid's best friend, but at the same time, you want to teach them that, yeah, the devil is going to try to stick his foot in the door anytime he can.
Yeah.
He's going to make an impact anytime he can. And sometimes that happens through the music that our kids listen to. My kids even listen to some of the junk that's out there. My two boys, they listen, and I can't get into it. I just can't. I get in the car with my younger son. He plugs in his phone and starts playing this junk. And I'm like, what in the world is that? I go, no, bro, you got to turn that off, kid. You got to turn that off. Oh, Dad, it's my car. It's my car. I'm like, bro, that's giving me a headache, man. You got to turn that off. But your music is good. It's wholesome. It's fun. It's upbeat. It's dude, I'm telling you, I ran 9 miles this morning, 9 miles, and I had your music playing in my freaking headphones. It was
Man,
just,
I need to get on your schedule, man. I need to run 9 miles.
yeah, well, 3:45 in the morning. It's bright and early for me. But
Yeah.
you know, my point is that, yeah, I had your music playing. Your music is incredible, and I want to give you a chance because this is about you. What do you have coming up that maybe somebody might want to check you out, go to a
Yeah.
show or something like that? What do you have coming up over the next couple months that you're excited about?
Yeah. I mean, I'm super excited for this weekend in Sauderton, Pennsylvania. It's right outside of Philadelphia. Music Fest with Sweatshirt of Hope 2023. It's a huge event with Jordan St. Cyr, and it's basically we're doing a recovery walk in the morning, you know, raising awareness on addiction and overdose and all that kind of stuff. And then we're preaching the message of Jesus, the message of God, you know, and just overcoming these battles. And it's going to be a huge concert afterwards. A lot of fun, a lot of games, a lot of fellowship. It's kid friendly. They're going to have kids stuff there as well. It's just an amazing time. It's this Saturday and Sunday. And then next month, October 21st in Monroe, Indiana, right outside of Decatur. I have a big event with Rare of Breed, and I don't know if you've ever heard of him. A few other big artists, but actually, that show is sold out. I just realized that. I was getting ready
That's
to
a good
plug it,
problem to have.
but it is a good problem. They actually sold it out twice. The first time it sold out in a week, and then they posted another link to expand it, and then that sold out as well. So I think we're at full capacity. Like the fire, I don't know who they are, but said they can't hold anymore. The venue cannot hold any more people. It's a fire code.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, praise be to God. The weekend after Thanksgiving, we're doing something that's never been done before. Here in my hometown, here, or not hometown, but where I reside at, outside of Apopka, Florida. We're holding a God Fest.
Hmm.
It's going to be like 12 days, like a
Wow.
12-day revival type concert. I'm performing. A good friend, Roy Fields, is coming to perform, and just a bunch of artists. Whoever feels led to come. If you're a musician, come. It's gonna be a 12-day festival, man. We've already got the campgrounds. We've got the fest. We've got everything lined up. It's gonna be the weekend after Thanksgiving, and it's gonna go for 12 days. Lots of fun, lots of fellowship, free food. They're going to have free hot dogs and hamburgers. We have a friend who has their own business, and they're setting up a truck with free hot dogs and food for people who want it. And it's just going to be a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. Fellowship in God. We rented out this facility that has like kids rides and trolley rides and all sorts of stuff for the kids as well. So it's a family friendly event. Bring the whole family, bring your friends, friends, spread the word, man. God Fest, it's going down. And if you don't know, follow me on Facebook, Nestor Nation, as well as Instagram, Joe Nestor Music, on YouTube, Joe Nestor. I'll be making more posts about that in the weeks to come as we get closer to it with all the details. So you can follow me on all those pages. Nestor Nation on Facebook, Joe Nestor Music on Instagram, Joe Nestor on YouTube and on TikTok. So
That's awesome. I'm out in California, but I just might have to try to get out there for that at least a couple days. And I might have to look into that. Well, that's awesome, man. I will make sure that all your stuff is in the show notes. But Joe, I am honored and glad that you took this time out of your day, your busy schedule, to be on the show. I'm glad that we got a chance to connect and become friends, and I'm looking forward to developing and growing this friendship.
Absolutely, Bryan. I truly appreciate it. And I'm humbled that you had me on here. Grateful for the opportunity and the experience. So hopefully some of y'all got something out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hopefully, if I can't get out to Florida, hopefully you can get out to California one of these days, and we'll break some bread together. I'll buy you a meal and just have a good time.
Yeah, I mean, we've been having some people reach out in Florida. I mean, in California. So as soon as I'm out that way, as soon as we lock something in, I'll make sure I give you a shout out.
Yeah, do
and,
it.
We'll catch up, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do it for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you again, my friend. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say one more thing. For those of you guys who don't know, 2 weeks ago, my new album, Convict.
Yes, it's a phenomenal album.
Released, and it's for anybody who's ever just felt like an outcast or felt like they're in that season of their life where they're feeling maybe disconnected from God or just going through some storms. It's all about seeking God and the conviction that He places on your heart to, like, man, you know what, man, I got to straighten up my act, or I want to seek You, and yeah, man, the new album Convict is out now on all platforms. So.
Dude, it is a phenomenal album. That's one of the songs that I got hooked on, that drew me to you. It drew my attention to you. It's just, if you have not gotten that album yet on iTunes or whatever you go get your music, download it, go do it. I'm telling you, everything in there is great. There's not a single song that isn't great in that album. So make sure you guys go do that. Joe, thank you again, brother, for being on. Praise God to you. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been another phenomenal episode of Dad Up. Thanks again to my good friend Joe Nestor for being on the show. Guys, if you have not checked out his music, checked out his social media, please make sure you do that. It's in the show notes below. I highly encourage it. It's great music, phenomenal. I mean, I can't talk about the guy enough. It's just phenomenal music, but just a great guy and a great humble family man as well. And I'm looking forward to continuing our friendship. So guys, if you have not yet subscribed, make sure you go subscribe to his YouTube channel, but subscribe to mine as well.
Yes.
So you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.